Hello, I'm Bo Grice with the Wiregrass Angel House, and as we are moving into a new year, I wanted to give you just a quick reminder of 3 tips that will help if you're on the grief journey. And again, remember, we refer to grief as a journey because it's not something that you quickly get over. Everyone goes through grief at their own pace, and it's their own experience. But there are 3 things you can do that will tend to help, push you along closer to the place of healing, which is where we want everyone to get to eventually. One thing is to accept the loss. And by accepting the loss, I'm not talking about mentally, because mentally we know that our loved one is gone. So there may be a brief time where we can't believe it. And if we're going through something like that, then usually that will clear itself up as we come face to face with the facts of them being gone. We hear the details of the death, and so we work through all the whats and hows and whens and wheres. But the part that it can be a struggle is emotionally accepting the loss, because we don't want to think of life without our loved one, and we don't want to think of having to face the future without our loved one, because that is fearful. And not having them around means that life as we have known it is over, and so we're facing a new normal that chances are we don't want. So it's real easy in that mixture of motivations and fears and reluctance to embrace the idea emotionally that they're still here, or that they're coming back, which is usually the big one, that someday magically my loved one's going to walk through the front door and I'll realize that all this was just a dream or nightmare, or something weird was going on, but basically they're back and life can go back to what it used to be. So coming to the place of accepting the fact that they're not here anymore, that they're gone, can be a very difficult realization to have to accept. And so acceptance is a big first step. Again, that's emotional acceptance, of coming to the place where we're willing to accept they're no longer with us. The next step, the second step, is to adjust. To adjust means that we're going to have to make some changes, probably in the immediate. Some things are going to come up you'll have to deal with. It may be legal paperwork, insurance paperwork. You may have to make the plans for the funeral. There's going to be things that change around the home. It could be the income. An income stream cuts off. It could be that the people left behind will have to increase their responsibilities for the family in the days ahead. There's any number of situations that are going to pop up, and usually immediately, that will require some adjustments. And so you're going to have to make those adjustments as needed. And where that becomes difficult is when you're experiencing grief, and if you are struggling with acceptance, the temptation will be to put this stuff off, and many times you can't. So you just have to force yourself sometimes to go ahead and do what has to be done, regardless of how you feel about it. And that's one of the most brutal things about grief. Grief is so feelings oriented from the beginning, and there's something in us that wants to allow our feelings to rule, but you can't, because your feelings make a wonderful servant, but they're an awful master. Your feelings are not real. Your feelings are just energy to motivate behavior, and that behavior many times is focused on self-preservation, or at least what we feel like will help us to find safety and security, or whatever else that we're needing. So you got to be willing to let that to make those adjustments regardless of how you feel. And then finally, to adapt. The adapting phase is something that in a sense will happen automatically as you move back into forming new habits, New routines are a key part of this. As these new routines take hold, and they will, over time, these new routines will become your lifestyle. They will become the norm. And once you get to that phase, many times the pain of grief will greatly decrease and may even subside altogether. Now, that doesn't mean you don't always miss that person, or thinking of their death doesn't cause you to feel sad, but it means you won't feel overwhelmed. And that, in a real sense, is what we mean by healing. That you come to the place you can function again. You come to the place you can function in that new normal, and you aren't overwhelmed all the time by the emotions that you felt in the beginning. Sure, you may be triggered at times in the future, but you'll overcome those rather quickly. So my encouragement to you in this new year, remember the 3 tips: accept, adjust, adapt. And if you'll do those 3 things, this time next year, more than likely you'll find yourself in a different place emotionally when it comes to the grieving process. And ideally, you'll be through it. Ideally, you will have discovered a place of healing for you. So we're here. If you need us, give us a call. We'll be happy to meet with you or talk with you. And I hope you have a blessed new year.